What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Pro V Pro. Last week, we just talked major championship futures. This week, we've got an actual golf tournament to talk about again. Really fun week ahead. This was our best week of the entire season a year ago. Hopefully, we can duplicate that success. Justin, do you have a this year's Austin Eckroat pick ready to go this week?
I hope so. I got a couple in mind that I like that are probably a little bit more long shot than Eckroat was last year, even though he kind of came out of nowhere. Just so everybody knows, I've probably played this course 100 times at least. It's where I practiced a lot when I had Canadian Tour status, because back then it was still a TPC course, so we got to practice for free out there. So I definitely know it well. I hate it. I think it's a bottom 5 course in DFW. I don't know why they play it, but I get it. I understand. I think that's what it was built for. But yeah, it should be a fun-ish week if you like watching a lot of rain delays and wide open golf course that all it matters is how far you hit your ball in the air, because that's what it is. And there's guys that I bet somebody doesn't make a bogey this week.
Interesting. Yeah, it's cool that from your own experience, you can kind of predict what the course fit model is going to say. You mentioned it's all about how far you can hit the ball in the air. Well, driving distance happens to have a 40% emphasis, greater than usual this week. So 40% boost on driving distance, 60% boost around the green. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about why you think the challenge around the green, maybe it's just a course management type signal, but something here is letting strokes gained around the green have a much larger emphasis than usual. And maybe that's even, like you mentioned, maybe not the most difficult course. So maybe it's about you have to get up and down to make birdies on some of the shorter par 4s, some of the par 5s.
Yeah. So, all the par 5s, though, I would imagine be able to hit it around the green into or on the green. And then you get very soft bent grass greens with all the rain. They're just not going to be able to do anything about that. Also, there's a lot. So here is a ton of runoff areas, or I want to say tightly mown areas around the greens, right? But don't think Florida tightly mowed. This is like Zoysia, tee it up, like the easiest lies you can get the chip off of. So if you're not a good chipper and you can't hit good chip shots off these lies, then you're not going to be able to get it up and down. Therefore, all the guys that are really good, their lies are so good that they can literally chip it in the leather every time. So I think that's where you see it, because a guy like Jason Day, who is so good anyway, but then he gets to have a perfect lie every time, whereas there's other guys that have the ability to chunk it from a good lie or a bad lie, right? So I just think that's why you see this huge signal. The greens are always generally pretty good. Obviously, bank grass. This is a good bank grass time of year here in Texas. We haven't really warmed up yet. We have 2 warm days, yesterday and today, but then it's rain the rest of the week. So footprints later in the day, that's going to be a place you want to play in the morning. There's a lot of stuff like that. We have had they've had the Corn Ferry Tour Championship a couple of times. We're looking at a 25 to 30 under winner if the wind doesn't blow.
Definitely possible with these conditions and on this golf course. It's one of the most interesting things that I have noticed from the projection so far is we have very little separation at the top. And part of that is just the field. We don't have a Scotty Scheffler at the top of this field, but I mentioned it to you backstage. 9 guys in this field are between 0.11 in the expected strokes gained for the lead. So from 1.1 to 1.21, 9 guys there. That should make for a pretty exciting leaderboard, hopefully on Sunday.
Yeah, and really the field is pretty good. We have good Zalatoris, Spieth, all with the local ties. Siwoo local ties. Tom Kim local. We have a lot of guys that are very local to this area, and that's where a lot of them play at and practice at least a little bit. Maybe most of them. Shit, I don't know if any of them call it home, right? I don't know if it's anybody's home course, just because nobody wants to play it every day. But I do think everybody has plenty of time out there.
Yeah. Do you think it's easier or harder to find outrights that you like in a week like this where there is no super clear favorite and you've got a bunch of guys bunched at the top in the projections?
I think it's a great week to gamble. I mean, look at some of the winners, not just at this golf course, but just this event as well, because of the ever-changing conditions in North Texas. You know, we literally had 2 weeks last week, 2 days, 2 separate days where it blew over 40 constant. I mean, then we're talking about like all of a sudden that golf course is a little bit harder and that chipping around the green stuff really comes into play. And then if we get no wind and rain and soft and playing the ball up in the fairway, you're all of a sudden going to go to a favorite like Zalatoris because he can literally make a birdie on every hole.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's a big variance.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the thing that stands out to me when I look at the simulation results is I do think we have some guys that are showing value. The problem is it's in a range that I typically don't like to go to. So, for example, we've got Adam Scott with a 5% chance to win. He's available at 25-1. There's value there. Benny On, we've got at 4.2% to win. He's available at 28-1. There's value there, but it's not a lot. And if you're trying to get 3-4 different outrights and you're betting them all in the 20s, that gets pretty tough. The next best guy that I see, Mackenzie Hughes, we've got at 2.7% to win. He's available at 45-1. So any of those names stand up to you as sharp bets?
I think that I love Adam Scott. He hits it through the moon. If we get a week where there's not much wind and it does play out where we're just sending it every hole, the Adam Scott all of a sudden becomes very, very high on my list. Same with Zalatoris. Like if we get those days of not wind and wet where it's just the chance to ball strike everybody, man, I'm gonna look. And it kind of stinks because I don't have the access that you have to some of these. But I'm going to look for somebody to contend that's at huge odds. A Parker Cootie, a Paul Barjon, who's made one cut, who played better last week with a partner. A Chad Ramey, guys that we know can make birdies in bunches and. When we get these soft conditions, I'm sure these guys are going to be, 200, 300, 400-1 type of guys.
Does Johnny Vegas at 150-1 fit that bill for you?
Man, so we talk about this some and we laugh about it a little bit, and some people understand and some don't. He's on my don't even look at him list. Like I don't. I pretend he doesn't exist. And it's because I've such a past of getting him wrong every time. I really like him one week and he plays terrible. I can't stand him the next week and he, top fives out of nowhere. Like I just can't figure him out. So he's on that list of like, yeah, I'm just gonna everything DFS, like all of it, just kind of pretend he doesn't exist.
It's such a good call because I'm not sure I've lost more money on a single player, or at least like a worse ROI on a single player than Johnny Vegas in main slates, and yet he might have one of the highest ROIs for me on showdown slates, just the perfect showdown player. So maybe we just want to continue that, and maybe it makes him like a good first round leader bet, something like that. But yeah, I think I'm with you. He'd have to probably be 200 before I made that bet, but he does show up with 0.6% chance to win, and we know he's got the distance off the tee. I think the surprise, though, is with so much around the green signal this week, despite the fact that it should be a birdie fest, that's a big no-no for Vegas. His short game almost as bad as his putting.
Yeah, like I said, he's in that do not entertain list, so I just try to look right over it and move on to somebody else. I kind of want to talk about this. This is a good spot to say it, but we can talk about we had the same winner back-to-back years, right? 2 years in a row, Lee won. And he was at 250-1 and then 200-1. So how often do you get a defending champion at 200 to 1, and then he comes back and wins again. And obviously he's not in form this year, but I don't even know what he is, but he's probably 100 or 80 to 1. Where is he this year? I don't even know. But
let me see. It's not loading for me. We'll come back to it, but
yeah, but you get my point. Like, how do you come back to, how do you win and then come back and offer super high odds again, the following year? I just don't. He's 45 to 1 on this site that I have, so I bet on yours he's probably 50 to 55.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just weird to me.
I see your point. I do think this is one of those golf courses that, despite the fact that the course fit model isn't super extreme in any way, it does potentially lead to some pretty strong course fits, because we only have 2 of the 5 that are even positive. Like accuracy off the tee, iron play, and putting are all slightly negative. And then you've got a 40% boost on driving distance and a 60% boost on around the green. So if you can find players who either really fit those 2 skill sets or really don't, you can end up with some pretty extreme differences between baseline expected strokes gained and course fit expected strokes gained. Which brings me to the player that I think is probably the hardest to project this week and to model this week, which is a guy we've talked about a ton this year, Jake Knapp.
Oh.
Yeah. Minwoo, but like the thing with Minwoo is we know who he is, right? He's really, really good off the tee now. He's almost as accurate off the tee as he is long. We've got 0.42 strokes gained driving distance for Minwoo, 0.39 for driving accuracy. Approach play, still terrible. Around the green, he's still great, still a really good putter. So it's so much more defined with him, whereas Knapp, we've seen Knapp employ some very different strategies off the tee based on the golf course, where some weeks he's just ripping driver, gaining 25, 30 yards on the field. And then there are other events where, like he went to Bay Hill, he went to the Players' Championship at TPC Sawgrass, and he mostly just hit that mini driver, completely gave up his distance advantage. When we've seen him play really well, the Cognizant, Mexico Open especially, even the Farmers Insurance Open, it's typically been when we've had this big signal on driving distance, and he feels like he can just unleash and lean fully into that speed advantage that he has. Do you think that this is one of those weeks where he can do that?
I can't think of a hole. Yes, I can. I can think of one hole where you don't hit a driver, or like even for me, like I'm hitting like a hard 3-wood, right? I'm hitting something that's flying 260, right? So there's no spot that, he'll be able to drive it on or around 2 par 4s. He'll be able to reach all the par 5s. And then all these par 4s that, like, a guy like me, I'm hitting. I tell people all the time, I love Craig Ranch. Every time I want to go hit a driver and a 7-iron into every par 4, that's where I go. You either literally can drive it on the green, or every other par 4 is a driver and a 7-iron or a driver and a 6-iron. Like, that's just the way it is for me. So he's going to be hitting driver wedge to all these, which is huge.
Mm-hmm. This is really cool. This is a little indication of why our strokes gained driving accuracy metric is so powerful and so beneficial. In the last event, RBC Heritage, he gained 15 yards on the field. So actually that was a pretty good sign to see him actually using driver a bunch on that golf course. Now, maybe he also just gained because he still hits the mini driver pretty far, but he hit 9% more fairways than the field average, and yet lost over half a stroke per round off the tee, because when he missed really badly. They were very penalizing misses. At Craig Ranch, when he misses, how penalized is he going to be? Like, do you see the offline drives costing him a stroke, 2 strokes, or can he get away with some of those bigger misses the way he could in Mexico?
It is so wide. I don't think that people can wrap their head around how wide this place is. And you want to talk about high leverage shots. We have about 3 or 4 of those, right? So like par 5s where you're driving it up in a neck, par 4s that are drivable where it's fairly narrow. Man, it's funny because we talked about this for the Masters, and I remember the same conversation. Like, is it kind of a Nick Dunlap and a Nap week? Like, it's kind of that same type of Palm Springs where Dunlap won. It's it fits the bill of just letting it go for these kids, and I think that's a great call. I think the more that these guys. And I think that's why Siwoo should play good, because he loves to hit driver, right? He's going to hit it a lot. All these guys that really want to hit driver all the time and love to hit driver off every hole, they should have a lot of success here.
Yeah, it's actually a shame that that Dunlap didn't play in Mexico, because we'd have that extra piece of evidence for him. But like, he finished T11 at Houston. That was also a distance advantage golf course. So yeah, I think Knapp has remained, like, even though he hasn't played as well in the last month or so, his irons have remained really, really strong. Like, the type of iron play that wins golf tournaments. He's gained over 0.6 per round in each of the last 3 events. He's only lost strokes with his iron once since the Farmers Insurance Open. He's been one of the better iron players in the world. The putter came back at the Heritage. Man, if he's unleashing driver, I really, really like him at 100-1, even though our model doesn't. Now, maybe I need to go back into the model and kind of manually adjust some of these inputs for the expectation that he comes out and rips driver a little bit more than he has of late. But what's your take on the 100-1?
100-1 that's way too big of a number that a guy. So we talk about this all the time, but a guy that we know, if he has his A game, he can win this golf tournament, right? So his A game. I mean, I don't know who the favorite is. I'm guessing Zalatoris or Day. I don't really know, but Zalatoris is probably the favorite here. If Will Zalatoris and Jake Knapp have their A game on this golf course, is his A game that much better than the Knapp's? I don't think so. Like, I think they're probably pretty close.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you there for sure. So I like that. I also kind of like. Let me double check. Where is Nick Dunlap this week?
He's 6,900 in DraftKings, because I was scrolling. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other guys down there too. Sam Stevens is intriguing to me. Davis Thompson's intriguing to me as well. He's right about the same as Jake Knapp. It's an interesting week where it's hard for me, because the way that I think, right? I think Minwoo Lee is probably the best player in this field. I think that he is the most talented player in this field. That's just my opinion. Over Spieth and Zalatoris. I know a lot of people are going to disagree, but that's what I think about his ability. I just don't think he's gotten there yet. So for his price on DraftKings, what is he, 28 or so to 1 and 30-1? Like, it's just too high for the most talented guy on the golf course, on a course that should fit him really well.
I like this Minwoo call. By the way, Dunlap 150-1 in the outright. I was hoping that he was more like 200. Don't think that I will play the 150. I am going to play Knapp at 100. I like this call on Minwoo. It is interesting. The only reason why he's not higher in the expected win probability, he's, I think, 4th in expected strokes gained, something like that. We found just over 3% to win, is because his event-to-event standard deviation is low. And the reason why his event-to-event standard deviation is low is because historically he hasn't had the spike weeks with the approach play that you need to be a higher variance player. But in the last 5 events, he's gained over a stroke per round with his irons twice, and he's gained with his irons in 3 of 5 events. One of the events that he didn't, he was at negative 2.7 per round at the Valspar. So maybe we are starting to see a little bit of that volatility in his iron play that we need to see. I do like this Minwoo call, especially because with distance mattering so much, like, he should gain a ton off the tee. We know how good he is around the greens. If the irons spike, man, he's got a good chance this week.
Yeah, like I said, it's just when you see what the course does and knowing that you can get a guy that talented. And the thing about it is here where he goes for par 5s, it's not like it's super easy shots. I mean, he's still going to be hitting long irons into these par 5s just because there's no roll. And if he misses the green, he still has a chance to get it up and down in almost all spots. He's not – I don't think there's any par 5s. I mean, I guess to the right of 9, but outside of that, when you're going for the par 5s and 2, there's not really like water in play, right? You can't hit it out of bounds with your second shot.
Yep.
You're going to be able to hit it again unless you hit a really bad golf shot.
Yep. So both Justin and I have U.S. Open qualifying this week. So we're trying to keep this show very short. Really struggled to even find a time to record this. So I know we're only about 20 minutes in, but let's jump into the one and done conversation and then get out of here. And hopefully we can each qualify for U.S. Open sectionals. What are your thoughts here on one and done?
I mean, obviously I've brought him up so much, I'm leaning to Minwoo.
Do we still have Minwoo? Let me double check that.
Pretty sure we do. I know
I vaguely remember. I know that either I used him or we used him. Let me figure out which one it is.
We may have actually. We
used him at the Cognizant, and he actually almost made that comeback for us. I think he went into the final.
Oh yeah. He finished second. Yeah. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
That we got a lot out of him anyway. I don't really. I'm going to struggle this week because I don't have any so-called favorites that I love, right? Like I don't have anybody that I'm just like, man, this is the week for this guy. I'm going to have to kind of look. I mean, Jason Day makes a lot of sense, but I don't love the way he's playing. I think he'll be, super, super chalky here. I don't love this fit for Spieth.
What do you think of Benny Long?
I mean, he's in the conversation for me. I mean, have we used Scott already? Scott would be in the conversation.
Have we used Adam Scott? That's a good question. I was wondering the same thing. We have. We used him at the API.
So it would be then for me. I mean, Ben on. Do we get to see the old Tom Kim being a local guy? No, he plays out here a lot of times. He's starting to play better. I mean, Jason Day he hits it high. He chips it really well. He hits it far. He would be in the number. The only other, like Steven Yeagers is intriguing to me because I know his MO is he can make 1 million birdies at once. He's intriguing. I'm not going to get behind this Hoagie stuff that everybody's talking about. Like, I'm not interested in him much. I just don't like the way he plays for this place. I think On would probably, being a shootout, what matters here, I think he would probably be where I'd lean after, obviously, Minwoo, with us using Minwoo already. Not a good enough fit for a Zalatoris. I mean, I don't know. Do you have any more thoughts on anybody else? Maybe a little deeper in the board?
He's third in our win odds. So I kind of feel like we just go there. Deeper, Mitchell, Mac Hughes did really well for us here a year ago. So I wouldn't be opposed to that. But beyond that,
we used Mitchell came to mind, but we used him in like Mexico or something when he was like 8 over through 7 or whatever.
Right. All right. Well, I think that will do it. Wish us luck at U.S. Open Locals, and hopefully we come back next week with some really good news. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time.